It's our TED Talk class, and today we will talk about the linguistic genius of babies. Uh, so about learning, about language, our favorite topic. I expect a lot of comments. Do we have a volunteer to retell the video? Anyone?
Yes. The speaker tells us how, while we are growing up, it's more difficult for us to learn a new language. So when we are a teenager, that's when our capacity to learn a new language decreases dramatically. So babies are the ones that are better to learn a new language. And the speaker told us that with a study, the critical age is between 8 and 10 months. So during those 2 months, if the baby is exposed to the sounds of a language, the baby makes some statistics of the language and learn the new sounds and is able to detect the new sounds. So, for instance, if we expose a baby, his native language is English and then also Japanese as a second language, he can learn both languages in the future, because I think the most difficult thing is understanding new sounds, new sounds. So that's the key. And also at the end of the speech, he told us that they put the baby in a device. It's called magnetoencephalography that detects the magnetic movements of the brain. So,
идите к себе играть, вы не мешаете.
Hey, who's talking?
Идите к себе, вы не мешаете.
Okay. So with this device, we can detect that the cerebral activity of the babies doing different things. I think that's the gist of the speech, talking about this device. The other thing about language, it was just an excuse. Okay.
It sounded like an ad, just showing off that device. Because actually I watched the video and honestly didn't get much from it, because she was talking about learning the language, but actually what she said that this 2 months period, from the age of 6 to 8 is like the best way of learning, of absorbing the sound system. But learning the language, yes, acquiring the language is much more than that, right? So yeah, sure, sounds are very important. So if you can hear and can differentiate different sounds of the different languages, it is easier for you to understand the words, right? To get the words. But as for learning how to combine them, to make the sentences, it's just like a different story, completely different story. Okay? Okay.
Hello?
Okay. Anyone else? Comments
Can you
about
hear me?
video in general? Yes, we can. Bashaya, hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to hear you.
So we're talking about the video, as you know, about this video, about the genius of babies. And I have a few questions. First one, why is the window is so short? Why it must be 2 months? It's surprising me. Surprise for me. Any thoughts?
I think that this is not okay. This is the time when it happens effortlessly. That's it. After that, you need to, I don't know, to make an effort to do like special exercises, I think. But during those 2 months, it just happens. The brain works this way. It absorbs different sounds. That's what I think. That's what I understood from her speech.
What sounds, please?
Yes, if a child could understand what is happening around her mother when she is inside her womb, so it it's also possible. She can learn some language within that short time period.
Well, my answer is kind of like that. I think that we have a short period for everything. A short period to learn how to walk. A short period to learn how to eat. I don't know, something like that. So nature make for us a short windows. One by one, we learn that. So look at the children. They develop in the same order usually with a little bit deviation. So maybe because of that, the nature thinks that 2 months it's enough already. They don't need more. Diana, please.
Actually, I think that in this period, the child starts to produce some sounds. And in this period, mothers start talking to them. Did you remember this? Mother, you know, special language. Yes, the mothers speak to them and they see the reaction. So it is more interesting for mothers as well. So that is why these sounds are absorbed so easily during that period. It's just, I don't know. I have a lot of questions to the lady from this TED Talk, because the things that she presented, well, I was not convinced actually.
Okay. Teacher Lee?
I disagree with Diana because mothers talk to the babies even before 6 to 8 months. So it's not like the
Sure,
mothers suddenly.
Yeah, I didn't say that they start talking at 6 months. I just tell you that at 6 months, children start producing syllables. And it gets more interesting for the mothers, you know, to interact, so to say, with the babies.
Okay.
So it's just, you know, they just start saying mama, like, you know, trying to imitate the sounds. It's kind of an interaction going on during this period. So I'm not, of course, mothers are talking with the babies all the time, but at that time, babies seem to answer. Yeah, to talk back. So that's why. Probably because it is this period when it is more, I don't know, capable. They're capable to absorb and to, you know, to learn better.
Okay.
Teacher
My guess as to why this window is so short, and it's just a guess. We have a saying that nature abhors a vacuum. In other words, nature doesn't like a place where there's nothing. So on the earth, every place has something. It has a rock, it has grass, it has dirt, it has microbes, it has something. Nature doesn't like a place that has nothing. So my guess is that around 6 to 8 months, that part of the brain is developing. So it suddenly turns on and becomes available. And initially it's completely empty. So that part of the brain says, I need input. It craves input to fill that vacuum, that empty part of the brain. So at that short time, it's just processing every single sound it can hear to fill that void, that empty place in the brain. And after 2 months, I guess it has enough data, if you will, that it says, okay, that's enough input. I've got enough information to work with, and that craving of the input slows down or turns off. That's just a guess I have.
I see. Vasant, please.
Yes, because during that time period, the children's brain works so sharply, because in India we have an example. The mother used to create a cradle or hammock, whatever you call it. I think hammock. It's used. They made the hammock by their sari, right? The mother's cloth, so that the child can feel the feel of secure inside the mother's warmth. So if the child could feel that in that way, that means the child's brain works so sharply. So I think that is the reason the child would learn new languages and new skills, probably.
Lynn, please.
Hello?
Hello,
Can you hear me?
go on. Yes.
Yes, I have the same idea as teachers Lee. When we
Okay.
learn a new skill, our brain has to make some physical connections in the brain. So 6 to 8 months is and the time period one to do its job. I don't know the reason why the period is the window is so short.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about this data, about this statistics. What is that? It's mentioned in the video, teacher Lee mentioned that. What is that? What we use for these statistics? Anyone? Gerard, please.
The video says that, the speaker says that the baby during those 2 critical months make some statistics with the sounds. So the sounds that are more used, he remembers and learns them, you know. That's the problem with some languages don't have some sounds, so it's a problem if they don't learn those sounds at such a young age.
So why we need this data? Why we need to listen to this? I can speak from my experience. When you learn, you know, we can speak because we learn foreign language. And when I start to learn next language, it sounds for me like, you know, I can't hear phonemes. I can't hear words. It's just a music for me. Blah, 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 blah. I need some data. I need some accommodation for my brain who can distinguish some phonemes, some words, to start to recognize them. And I think that for children, it's the same story. What do you think?
So the speaker told us in this video that during that period, yes, this 2 months period, children are able to differentiate all the sounds. So if they are exposed to 10 different languages, they will differentiate different phonemes in all of those languages. That's the main thing here. So after that period, they lose this ability. So if they're exposed to one, if you keep exposing them to 10 different languages, they will, you know, keep this ability. But if they're exposed to one language, they will stick to that particular phonemic system or whatever it is. So that's why the bilingual kids can speak fluently and can be native in 2 different languages, because you keep exposing them to these languages, you know, to both of them equally. So, and there are different examples when children can speak 3 or even more different languages on the same native-like level, because they're exposed from the early age to all those languages. So what she told us, that 2 months after those 2 months, at the age of 10 months, the child loses the ability to differentiate the sounds of the other languages, other than their mother tongue or the languages that the child is exposed to, you know. So, and then it is more difficult to differentiate. You need the special training for that, you know, you need the special exercises for that. It is not impossible. It is possible, but you need to train your ear. You need to listen to it. You need to copy the mouth, the tongue, you know, a lot of effort going on.
Right. I can recall my Vietnamese experience, you know, I still don't hear all these vowels.
Yeah.
Gerard, please.
You know, I am bilingual. My first language is Catalan and my second language is Spanish. But I learned Spanish between 3, 4, maybe 5 years old. I'm just by listening. So I didn't do anything special training and anything. And besides, I wasn't I was quite shy, so I didn't interact with other people speaking in Spanish too much. So even so, but only because there was a lot of people around me speaking in Spanish and television, I learned Spanish in this way quite easily compared with the way I need to learn new language now.
Okay. Teacher Lee, please.
I just want to say that in IT terminology, that 2-month period is when the brain runs a computer program to record inputs and differentiate them and catalog them based on how often they hear the sounds, and then that program quits running.
Mhm.
So that's why all this happens in a 2-month period. It's like you're running a computer program to generate a set of data, and then that program finishes.
Mhm.
So that may be another way to think about it. The brain is actually coding a program to get these inputs, catalog them, and get a data set to base the future on. But it's not a continuous program. It runs for a short time and stops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Gerard, you learned the second language at the age of 3 to 3, 5, you said, right?
Yes.
So, and actually, the speaker in the video told us, and it was not just her, it's like the common knowledge, that the best period for learning the languages, any languages, before school, actually, yeah, just before 7 years of age. So it doesn't mean that it stops at the age of 7. It's getting more difficult. You need more efforts. But if you are a preschooler, learning languages is fun and no efforts whatsoever. Yeah.
Right. So it may make us sad, right? Why I did not do that? Why I did not do that in my preschool? Why should I struggle with that now?
Ivan, there are a lot of examples when people started learning languages in their later age, and you know, so they succeeded. So don't worry about that. And we have you. You are an example of successful learning languages. So stop talking.
The example of broken phoneme recognizing program.
That's right. That's right. But still fun, you know, fun to listen to.
Okay, Vasant, please.
In your childhood, it's very easy to absorb or memorize any word. But if you get older, then you have many other things to compare in your own language and some other things. So your mind is confusing with some other things. When you are learning any word, you started to compare with some other languages. So your mind is confusing. So it's hard to grab the meaning of new language. I think that is difficult.
Okay, so Sergey, let's start from some question from our list.
Okay. Hear me now?
Yes.
What's the biggest hurdle of learning English from your perspective?
Okay. Can you share?
I think that's the most causes is insufficient effort and small discipline and few places for application of language. For example, for me in Russia.
Anything else? No. Okay, Vasant?
I think from an Indian perspective, the accent matters. They think the accent matters. So they try to behave like, pronounce like the native English people. So that makes them hard to learn that language.
So Teacher Lee wrote that Indians have trouble with TH sound, but not only Indians, Teacher Lee. That TH sound, it's quite, I don't know, quite alien for others.
Well, if they heard that sound when they were a baby, they probably can say it correctly.
Right. So
I
how
don't-
can we? Mhm.
I don't think that it is the most difficult sound. I think that and all those vowels are much more difficult for foreigners than the or th. It's quite easy to pronounce, actually. It's just you need to remember how to pronounce, where to put your tongue, you know. But with vowels, it's problematic, I think. Mhm.
Right. Many challenges, not only one.
Yeah.
Gerard?
For Spaniards, the most difficult thing are the different vowel sounds, because
Yeah.
they have only 5 strong vowel sounds that they are very different.
Mhm.
And they tend to unify all the vowel sounds within these 5 vowel sounds. And sometimes also they pronounce the sounds like they are written in Spanish, so it's a mess
Right.
for them.
Mhm.
Right. Anything else?
Mhm.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
So would you like to answer?
What?
Would you like to answer a question? What is the biggest hurdle of learning English?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Can you read our chat? Can you see our chat? Mhm.
I don't understand you, but I want to share you this my opinion about this topic. Okay, I just here, especially here in my culture, in Arabic culture, most of the kids talk at around age 3 or 4 fluently.
Okay, and she left. It's some censorship, I think. Okay. Diana, can you choose a question? Another one?
Okay.
Answer this,
Okay.
if you want.
Mhm. Okay. Do you think, okay, Ivan, it's your question. Do you think that having a tutor speaking different language from the early age is a good idea? Have you seen examples of that? Oops. Okay.
I don't know the right name for this tutor. You know, it's like in old age when you have a baby, you hire a woman or a man to take care of your child and speak different language or something like that. What is the name for that? Tutor?
Well, like a nanny who speaks foreign language. I don't know how to call her. Tutor. Well, tutor is a good name, I think, for that. You know, if I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. So if you take a nanny who speaks only French, for example, or English, so I think that your baby will be exposed. But if you take this nanny in our certain period, as we already know, at 6 months of age, so I think it's a nice thing. And of course, Ivan, I know that you know a lot of examples of that in the classic literature, yes, in the Russian history, because all Russian nobility, they used to have French nannies. They actually had problems with Russian, yes, they all spoke perfect French, but could not speak Russian because of that, because noble people spoke French most of the time. Yeah, and they have German nannies as well, so several foreign languages. Yeah, it's a good idea. Why not?
But they have to learn Russian after, you know, as a foreign language.
Yes, the new couple of European languages, so they just didn't feel the need to learn Russian, so they didn't do that.
Okay, so
and now you can see the result. The Russian language is suffering now. Yep.
I ask it that because I recently have seen an example of that. Some our friends hire how to say it, a tutor from Philippines, and she speaks English, and surprisingly, babies start to speak English instead of Russian.
Yeah, that's a surprise, of course.
So that's why I ask it. I want to hear your stories. Lynn, please.
Yeah.
Let's say your nanny speaks English for one day and speaks Russian on an alternative days. So the baby will learn both language in that way.
I don't know. Gerard?
Maybe the key could be to find the languages which encompass many sounds. There are languages who have a lot of sounds. So I think the important thing here is not learning the language; it's only understanding the different sounds. So I think that's very important to learn the language. If you understand the sounds, it will be easier to learn it.
Okay, so then I recommend Vietnamese. I'm amazing still. how many sounds they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, another example, actually, well, it's not example from my life, but I learned it on the internet, that the child was actually not bilingual, but they have like different nannies. I think they were relatives from different parts of the world, like a big international family. And the child, when he started speaking, he spoke different languages with perfect accents, but he spoke it with different people. He knew which language to use with which person. So he spoke different languages with perfect accents, but with different people. So, and never was mistaken which language to use with whom. So children are amazing with that. So actually, I also learned that when you expose a child from the early age with different languages, it will be much easier later to learn any other language. Because of that, I think, because the child is exposed to different sound systems, it helps them. It just like broadens, I don't know, this path, in the brain. So it is easier later to acquire new sound patterns or whatever. Okay.
Basans, please.
And not only English, it's a common opinion. Many languages have different conversational languages different from the literature. So especially, for an example, my language is totally different from the literature. What you read in the literature is not what we are talking to someone. So some new people who learn that language struggles with that fact. They have to learn the literature one, not the conversation. They have to learn the first, then they have to shift to the conversational language. Thankfully, I think thankfully English doesn't have such a language difference, I think.
Oh my goodness, you're so mistaken. Because I learned this literature thing first, and it was so difficult for me when I started, working with real people. When I started talking with them, because, I could talk about Shakespeare and the sonnets and all this stuff, but didn't know the everyday things, how to call them, So it can happen in every language, yes.
Yes, I think it's in any language.
Yeah.
Because now I read a lot of books, children books to my boys, and the way the books written, we don't use that. I don't know why we teach children that, but we never speak this way. And the last time when I read something like that, it was when I was a child, when my father read to me. So it's strange. I don't know why we do it. I think it's in any English. So speaking about that, what do you think? Why we need a real human to read? Why we don't use? Why we can't use TV or audio or something? It's not logical. Why? Sergey, what do you think? Why TV is worse for your children than you?
I think that TV don't give emotional conversation, and if they talk with the people, they can give more experience than TV show, because children doesn't make keep attention a long time.
I see. But I cannot agree, you know. Sometimes on TV they speak much more emotionally than I do ever. Gerard, please.
I think the baby wants to learn to communicate with a person. He doesn't know about TV or audio. He doesn't know the importance of listening to an audio or watching TV. He knows that he's in front of a person and wants to understand this person.
Yes, but they're small. They don't communicate. They're small. Less than 1 year old. Vasans, please.
Now, in watching TV series, that which type of programs you watch, that matters a lot, because watching any talk show would not help you to learn English, because you need some scenario to understand what is happening there. Because if you are watching any and somebody said, I'm going to bath, and they go into the bathroom, so you can assume that, okay, this word means they are going to bath. So but if you just watch a talk show, you cannot understand what they are saying, because they are just sitting and exchanging the words. So it is really hard for a new learner.
Okay, let me be an advocate for other side. So we don't talking about learning the language. We're talking about learning sounds, right? Learning phonemes, collecting statistics, data, and so on. So in this regard, why TV can be worse? You know, it's produced the same sounds. It sounds just about wrong for me. What do you think? Shirley, can you help us?
No, not really. My only guess is that the social interactions between humans is an important survival technique. And I'm thinking our genes, our DNA may be encoded to give more precedence or importance to people-to-people interactions. So it may be the social element in our DNA is given more importance to sounds that are used in communications between humans rather than a TV or recording that comes from nowhere.
I see.
Well,
Jana?
I think, I think she's still talking about this period, right? So 6-8 months of age. So I think that at this period, the child just does not understand, cannot differentiate the sound coming from TV or the sound of the dog barking. Well, that's the difference. So when he sees a face of a person, when a child sees the mouth opening and the sounds coming out, he can understand that this is coming from a human being. So somehow I think the brain gets that this is important. This is what I should pay attention to, something like that. I don't know, this social factor again, probably. So the sound of a TV is like an animate object, you know, talking or, you know, producing something is just not important for the brain at this moment. Later on, and I have an example of my daughter with we started watching and listening to English songs very early. She could not walk yet, she was crawling, but I just kind of you know, produced it as well. We sang all together. I just showed, so at that moment it was okay for her, but later she preferred listening to the songs on computer screen, on TV screen, you know, not from me, because I was kind of distracting her. She didn't like that. She wanted this. But she was a little bit older than this 10 months old, like a year and something, you know, and she preferred that. But I don't know, so probably too young, you know, to differentiate the sound from TV or radio. But, you know, here in the video, she was showing this child who is 6 months old, and the child was listening. So I didn't get that, actually. Explain someone this point to me. The child was listening in that machine, yeah? So sitting in the machine, listening to something, and they were watching the, not the development, the work of the brain or something. Why? If the audio is not working, how can they measure it, you know, correctly or whatever? I just don't get this point in the video.
The baby was listening to audio. It had earplugs.
Okay, but she said that the audio and TV sound, it's not the same as the, you know, like the human communication. So why do they, how can they measure the 6 months old listening to the audio? So it's not correct results then.
Okay, we just solve that. It's just a trick, you know, to sell something.
That's right. Advertisement.
Okay, it's just you know, just a conspiracy theory not to buy these tapes.
Yeah.
Buy Philippines nanny.
Nannies. Oh, okay, yes.
It's better for you, for your children, better for your house. Gerard, please choose another question.
Okay, number 4. Do you agree that people who can speak multiple languages are smarter than people who can speak only one?
We have an example, you know.
I think it's helpful. It's like speaking many languages is like a gymnastics for our brain. So, of course, that will improve our inherent intelligence.
Anyone else?
I don't think, I would not equate a talent for learning language quickly as intelligence in a general sense. That's my opinion. You can know 5 languages and not be perhaps intellectually smart compared to someone that speaks 1 language. They could still be much smarter than you. My opinion.
Lynn, please.
Some people say that learning multiple languages forces your brain to work harder. So your brain is more developed by learning multiple languages. Is their argument. Who speak more than one language is smarter.
Okay, Vasant?
I think learning language is just a part of your brain's work. So, but smartness is measured by the full functionality of brain. So you cannot compare the smartness with learning languages, I think.
Well, my answer is that this question is tricky, you know. We don't know what is smart, that's all. So we can consider that they're smart, we can consider different. So if someone, you know, some genius in math, you know, solve many mathematical equations, is he smarter than the guy who, I don't know, who speaks 10 languages? I don't know. It's not a it's not a ruler for that. There is not a ruler for that. We don't know. Yes, and teacher Lee provided an example that Professor Barnhart, which, you know, that as we know saved our world, speak only 1 language.
Yeah, and actually some genius, mathematical genius, can be absolutely helpless in the kitchen, for example, and which will be equivalent an idiot for my mom, who is like, you know, like the best chef ever. So, you know, it's just different, yeah, different fields.
And we know also that language learning is time consuming. So you just spend a lot of time, which you can spend to your to another learning, to your math or.
Well, master anything is time consuming, you know, just right.
Even smoking is time consuming.
Right.
Right. So, Lynn, please, your question.
Okay, it's teacher Lee's question. Assuming we could induce this 2-month linguistic genius period into an adult brain, what could be some of the ramifications, long-term, far-reaching effects of doing so? How might it change the world?
Okay, what do you think?
And obviously, it will make it easier. So it's not good for teachers.
Why? It's wonderful for teachers, you know. Everybody could speak, could pronounce the words properly, and it would eliminate a lot of, you know, like tedious work, I think, for the teachers, and the work would be much more interesting.
So instead,
Yeah, but teachers.
Please go on.
Yeah, teacher Lee wrote in the chat. Teachers would be less important. So.
But it still can be good for teachers, you know. Instead of 10 idiots, you have only one student. It's much easier. But would you still learn a language in this case if you can just, you know, take a pill and learn in the next 2 months? I don't know. I would postpone it just before my, you know, my needs, before traveling or something. Teacher Lee,
it's good for us.
I was just going to say that the 2-month period is just when you can learn the sounds correctly. You still have to have someone teach you vocabulary and, you know, sentence structure and stuff like that. But it would help you pick up the sounds immediately. So that's one of the hardest parts of a language initially, is learning the different sounds. So you could learn the sounds quickly in this 2-month period, but you still have to learn vocabulary and grammar. So language teachers would still have a function, but they wouldn't have to focus on how to say the word. They could focus on other stuff. You know.
Right. So it's called only one part of learning. So it's not how we call it, gold pill. It doesn't solve all the problems. Okay, Vasants, please choose something.
Okay. If someone hasn't heard English at all and he was sent to an English-speaking country, how long do you think he will take to communicate properly? I think it might take 2 years.
I think it will take one day. You know, as you get hungry, you will go to cafe and somehow speak. Give me something. So it depends what we call communicate properly, and it's a trick again. If you can book a hotel and order a dinner, probably you already communicate properly. But if you need to get a work and probably, I don't know, get a degree in math, it will be another story. And we discussed once that talk about 6 months is enough for learning language. My 6 months passed far away. I mean, my 6 months in Spanish, and I think that I can survive, but I don't think that I know language, that I can speak. So I think it takes long period, but the first needs can be covered very easily in a few days, in a week, in a month at top. No more? Lynn, please.
Learning a new language is more effective if you live in a country which where people speak that language, right? So you can learn a new language in a much shorter time.
Right. If you live in these circumstances, it's much more easy to you than than you live in Siberia and learning English, and you never can hear it English in your real life, only in hangouts with teacher Lee. So it's another story. Gerard, please.
I think it also depends on how far is this language from yours. There are languages which are completely different. So it's not that difficult for a Spanish to learn Italian, but it could be very difficult to learn Mandarin for us.
Yeah.
Diana, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this immersion thing nowadays is not a problem. I think we all have internet connection. Now it's just we can watch TV shows, we can watch and listen to so many different podcasts, and we can speak with many people nowadays. So even if we're not in the English-speaking country, it's not so difficult, because I can compare with the time when I studied the language, when I really had very limited sources of the language to listen to. Actually, it was just the teacher, the lecturer, and the teacher in the classroom, and then the laboratory, yes, the linguistic laboratory, so to say, where I could hear the sounds. And this is so different from what we're having now. So even if we're not in the English-speaking country, and even if we do not hear language in the streets, we have a lot of different sources nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Agree. But I think there is another aspect of that. You can hear, you can listen to many sources, but when you encounter, you need to communicate. You need to.
That's right. But on the other hand, we still have a lot of examples of people who are living in the country, in the neighborhood, where they all just, the community of the immigrants, and they cannot learn and cannot speak the language, and they still speak the language after 10 or 20 years. They speak language with such a horrible accent because they don't need it, in their neighborhood. They have the cafes and restaurants where they can speak their native language and have no problem at all. So country is not I agree that when you use the language, when you are alone, and everybody is speaking the foreign language, of course it is easier for you to learn that because this is a necessity. So, but actually you can create this necessity, sitting in your Siberia, So you are doing that. You are creating the necessity for you to speak the language, and you are doing that. So more effort, of course, but everything is possible and not so difficult nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Let's work on vocabulary for a little bit. So how we can call this neighborhood, ghetto, or some better words? So some neighborhood when some of expats, of immigrants, for instance, Russian in New York, they all speak Russian, they have Russian shops. How would we call that?
Like districts, I don't know.
Charlie, please.
We have, if a place becomes famous like that, we'll call it Little China, or Little Italy. It means it's almost like part of that country has been dropped down in your own country. San Francisco, I think, has an area called Chinatown.
Yep.
You go there and it's all Chinese. The signs are Chinese. Chinese people live there, work there. There's no Americans there. So we might call it Chinatown, Italy town. These areas usually have high crime because they steal from their own people, because they figure their own people won't call the police and make trouble because maybe they're there illegally and don't want to get the law involved. Miami, very bad area. There's parts of Miami that are all Cuban. I'm afraid to go into those parts of town because everything is in Spanish. The people are Spanish. Their culture is Spanish. A lot of them are criminals. They steal from each other. They're poor. They don't have good jobs, so they have to steal. Just very scary. So we don't really have a name for them other than something like Chinatown or Cuba Town or Italy Town, or, they usually are kind of ghettos and slums. They usually aren't very well maintained. because they're relatively poor, but we don't have a special name for them that I can think of.
I see. So the getter is a wrong name for that, right? It's some negative connotations. Okay. So, Sergey, please choose a question. Let it be the last one.
Do you think there will be a technology which can read our mind remotely?
Okay.
And today I read an article about robots. In 50 years, robots will be think about people like we think about ants. And I think that it will be a reality. But I don't that.
So you don't agree with that? No, never. Okay. Masans, please.
Actually, I don't know about the future, but actually we had that kind of technology in the past, but due to some wars, the historical activities, it has been lost from our treasure. So we have many examples. We have the evidence that we had such a technology, but we do not have the techniques anymore. We lost it.
Anyone else? What do you think? Are we in danger?
I would say if you think about our brain, somehow we store data in our brain. I can remember a person's face. I can remember a place where I was, things like that. I can remember sounds, emotions, events. Somehow that's encoded in my brain, just like 0 and 1 data bits are stored on a hard drive. An advanced technology should be able to find a way to read the data storage system of our brain. It's physical. So I would think that technology someday will be able to read our memories and images just like we would read data from a hard drive. But we're a long way from that technology.
Lynn?
Currently, there are some devices which can read the emotions or patterns in our brain, but we need to wear those devices on our head. So the device and sensors need to be in close proximity with our brains. But we could extrapolate the technology and invent something which can monitor our brain from a remote location, like from a satellite. So it may be possible in the future.
So we already have a lot of devices, who reads that read something. On this video we had some. I can't pronounce this, ECM or something, encephalography, I don't know what is that, which read something. And the question is, what is our minds? How it's maybe some. I think that there will be progress in that. It's no doubts about that. But should we read our mind as a text? I don't believe that, because we don't really understand each other, and I don't believe in the computers in that regard. Vasant, please.
I saw a magic trick on TV where a magician predicts what the audience have a number in their mind just by looking at their eyes. He says 1, 2, 3, 4. If the audience has number 5 in his mind, he says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then okay, 5 is the number, because there is a tiny moment in his eyes. His eyes were just wings are wide open. It's a very tiniest amount. So the magician has the the ability to sense that tiny motion in his eyes. So some people still have such a trick or something.
But it's far away from read your mind, you know. And how we call that devices that police use, teacher Lee? Some truth detector, some, I don't know the term for that. Lie detector. Okay, lie detector. Lie detector, it works somehow too, but it's far away from read your minds. In other case, you know, government just grab a spy, put it in device, and have all the secrets. But it doesn't work. They need policemen. They need someone who make questions and so on. So let's finish on that, on this positive idea. So we think that a machine doesn't read our brain. Let's keep it for a while. Thank you for coming. Thank you for nice discussion. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.